many things in life that are more satisfying than, well, brand new Model D into a reverb that is almost infinite.
Yeah, exactly.
By Eventide.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, you're right. Basically, I guess we wanted to come down today and talk a bit about the Eventide stuff. Because you see so many synth players with Eventide pedals. You know, there's loads of the modular guys have them, loads of the synth players have them. I think they don't really get a lot of the.
No, we've definitely reviewed a couple of these, but more from a guitar point of view.
Exactly.
So, and you know, I'm always in search of the perfect shimmer. You know,
massively. Yeah, well, I mean, like Eventide are the originators of Shimmer and those effects. I mean, it's a 40-year-old company and they've been around for a long time, and they brought out the harmonizer, and you know, as used on Bowie's Low, and
well, the classic. There was an anniversary recently, wasn't there?
Exactly.
Was it the 910? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like Fripp and all these sort of legendary players like Steve Vai as well, like those, you know, Laurie Anderson as well, singing and then singing one note and hearing this whole like arpeggio occurring. That's Eventide harmonizer territory. But harmonizing is kind of only part of what they do. I mean, they have delays, modulation, they have reverbs, and they've, you know, you probably know, I mean, you do know that they've released rack mount units like the H3000, the H8000, so the 3000's legendary. And yeah, so it's like, there's stuff, I think the reason it gets picked up by synth people so much is because it is really otherworldly and it lends itself to electronic music in so many ways. But I think that the key thing is that there's such like scope to push algorithms way beyond.
And that's the other interesting thing is normally you only see that, or you more often see that in software rather than hardware.
Totally.
And I mean, this brace of pedals all have their own specific functions, but essentially they're running kind of classic.
They are. They're actually running algorithms, a lot of which are descended from big £5,000 units like the H8000 and the Eclipse as well. And you know, each of these pedals specializes in a sort of department of types of effects, but each of these pedals contains, you know, like 10 or 12 algorithms, and an algorithm is like a pedal in and of itself.
Yeah.
And even within some of the algorithms, there's like 4 or 5 different tonal sort of blocks. So you've got just a nuts amount of sort of sound modulating, but just to sort of reiterate that previous point, that you can really push the parameters to a point where they almost become like synths themselves. Do you know what I mean?
That was the Space, wasn't it, that we were listening to?
So what we were doing is Space, you know, the Space Hall, which is just like a classic hall sound, where you've got tonal, I can adjust the high and low level, so I can have more or less bass, and mid, and then you've got decay size, and obviously this is what I mean in the sense like the decay can go from very short, so if I just knock that back, short, to infinite.
Again, it's just the smile, isn't it? It's that sort of, because you can make these kind of things by routing effects yourself, but it often misses that magic thing that I'm hearing here.
Well, but then if it's infinite like this, then I can interact with it. So, you know, it's like having infinite sustain on your guitar, you know. You end up pulling that face a lot, but...
There's a soundtrack right there.
Yeah, I mean, seriously. So
obviously not everybody's going to be doing 90 million second ambient.
No, and I think that's also,
like,
so just to reiterate, the parameters it gives you to work, you know, you can work at kind of normal levels, whatever that means. I really wanted just to see this because the reverse on the Space is just mental. So if I sort of get it going, you basically have a true reverse reverb, plus you also have an algorithmic forward reverb on top of it.
So you're backing into the reverb, effectively.
Yeah. So, and that's just the reverse on its own. We didn't hear the independent or the extra reverb, but if I up the size, that's like an all-in-one control, which controls the amount of it and the size of it. So now there's extra reverb on top. you know, with all kinds of tonal. We have EQ,
It's just so dense, isn't
modulation. Yeah, you have mod, so it's. I mean, a lot of this stuff will be hidden behind the scenes to like enrich the algorithms, but in some instances you do get the ability to kind of add modulation, which just adds life
And you've got dedicated controls for a lot of these parameters
yeah.
on here as
So,
well, right?
I mean, you can see that I'm messing around with these. Obviously, you have preset controls. These are all of the controls for the parameters, for the algorithms are on, you know, there's a little dedicated knob for them. What I'm not doing, and which you can do, is you can send MIDI CCs to control those parameters.
Right.
So if you've got, you know, you're using this in a production environment, they've all got proper MIDI DIN in and out on the side. And you could, say you're using Ableton Live or something like that, you could set up, like if you're using Max for Live, you could have a little CC control, you know, set up the CCs. These all respond to CCs,
Right,
they're not
so
sysx. And you could say, here's my Eventide space controller. And you could actually automate all of this, you know, really easily. You know, if you want to, you could connect to MIDI Knobby Box. The other thing, which I'm not doing here, but which you can do with, you know, you just need to be a bit careful, is the expression inputs. You know, you can obviously connect to, you know, trad guitar expression pedal to those, and you can create this thing where you basically can assign the knobs and assign ranges.
To a pedal sweep.
And rock between those two settings, so you can kind of push an algorithm to and from settings. And I know people do this, but just be careful. But you can actually plug CV into those expression inputs. I think that what I'm saying be careful is don't put too much voltage in. You know, start, you know, no more than sort of 2 volts, because it's not quite what it's designed to do. But it should respond to it basically. So let me just show you Shimmer, which you were referencing before.
As we know, yeah.
Yeah, I mean basically Shimmer is a combination of
It's chorus and delay and.
Yeah, basically, well, a big reverb and harmonizing. So, like, you know, the pitch shifting element. So here's our pitch shifting. We have 2 pitch shifting elements. If you get them kind of bright, you can hear it. You hear it like.
I thought someone was in the car park doing a donut then. Oh wow, yeah.
So yeah,
They
I mean,
do. They do. They
you know,
do.
that is one where it's like it is beautiful with the guitar as well, just
Yeah.
for like a single note, just to become this like sort of beautiful kind of world. But you know, it is, you're right. I mean, it is very cinematic. All of these things kind of lend themselves to ambient soundscapes. I mean, the mod factor is, God, there's. Even within
this is more dedicated to modulation, like chorus flanger,
exactly,
cyclicals type
but
stuff.
But it is, you know, we're selling it short to say it's just that. I mean, even within the chorus, you know, we have multiple different types of chorus, so it's not just one. So just so you can hear it without, that's the dry. So it's adding width and life. And then we have basically, so there's like an LFO, like a modulation LFO, which is adding that wow kind of. And then we also have a modulation LFO for that LFO.
Right, so
it's actually like, it's like
cross mod,
yeah, it's like FM basically. And you can modulate as by division of the master tempo.
So we get a double.
So you get this kind of beat, and then different flavors.
And that's just the chorus.
Yep. And then you also have tons of different modulation systems, so like envelope following, and you know. So it doesn't create huge reverbs, but it's creating this beautiful sort
stereo
of
texture.
Stereo. phaser. So, and I mean, this can. This would be awesome with a pedal, just to sweep.
Yeah.
So cool.
So effectively, we've got quite a lot of synthesis functions in here that are like all the different waveforms that we can modulate.
Yeah,
those
you
kind of
can.
effects with.
You have sort of loads of different LFO shapes that you can do, so it's pretty familiar territory if you're into synth. So this QR, if I sort of slow things down a little bit, the QR can do really awesome vowel stuff.
That would be great. It's like a talk box almost.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that would never be able to sound like that without, yeah, that one. It's nuts. No. And so lastly, we have a ring mod. So, and with this, you really can get weird sort of territory, you know, and then blend that in. Nutso. So,
I mean, this will do all the flanges and all the other stuff in between as well.
Right? And it will ape so many of the classic pedals as well. There are settings you can set them up so they will just give you certain, you know, classic sounds. I guess what I'm showing here is sort of some of the more extremes, just to, it suits it so well. Okay, and so then we've got the time factor. Now this is a digital delay. It can sound very analog as well, as you're about to hear, but it's digital at its heart, so it can do up to 3-second loops, 3-second delays. But you actually do have a looper in here as well, which can be up to, well, between 12 and 48 seconds, depending on the quality.
So you can reduce the sample rate.
Yeah, you can, and sort of do like changing the length of the loop as you go. So, you know, as part of a pedal rig, you know, for guitarists especially, but for our purposes, let's look at the delay. So it's capable of super pristine, kind of what went in is what comes out type delays, but with feedback. And then
super tight.
And then we have this stereo thing where you can mix.
I guess ping pong.
Because again, the two delay lines.
Dual engine.
Exactly, right. Yeah. And so, and you can have.
And I guess you can have cross feedback and all that kind of stuff.
It's pretty nutty. You do have a filter and then modulation for each of these times. So I'll shorten them a little bit, and then you can get some mod, so there's a bit of flexibility and a sort of quiver. So, nutty.
It's definitely got a thing going on, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, these are essentially just algorithms, and I'm guessing you can get a whole bunch of these in the H9 as well. But
you can get
with
all
these,
of
you
them
get
in
the
H9.
dedicated controller and time. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Next, you have like a vintage delay, which is also a digital delay. It's well, it's all digital, but in the sense that this is based on old classic delay units. So it has a bit rate, and if I adjust the filter, you should be able to hear this fuzz. There's a kind of gritty quality to it.
Oh yeah.
Or you can up the rate.
But it's softened, isn't it? Smooth grit.
Actually, and you have a filter, so you can further kind of. So if you put loads of fluff in, you can kind of roll it off. And it's just beautiful at doing long, sustained.
It doesn't degrade as quickly as a lot of delays do when you get
with the repeats.
Yeah,
and I mean you can sort of engineer that basically, but then you have a tape echo, which I'll just put on here, which we have wow and flutter for, and saturation, so you can get these kind of wonderful little kind of trills. So if I do, you hear that?
Yeah, it's like our old tape system.
And we can darken them, add saturation, and then of course
it's those space effects, great for that 1950s sci-fi film.
If you're Louis and Baby Baron. So just, yeah, wonderful.
And you can do these really tight, almost couple of strong type tones as well with this as well, because it'll go really.
And that's the modulation that you can hear. But yeah, so actually very kind of warm and like analog if you want it to be, with a whole host of other settings as well. The last algorithm to highlight on this is multi-tap. There's a multi-tap delay, which we can basically is literally multiple repeats with a spread control. So by putting in a single note and changing the spread and delay time, you get this kind of
complex rhythmic stuff.
You get these kind of, yeah, exactly that, like rhythms.
I mean, it is the closest thing to a kind of plug it in a box, that kind of level of tweakability and fantastic of imaginative processing, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the key, is like there's so many sort of little creative avenues. I think as part of the songwriting process, I would definitely want to have this next to me then, because one note, you suddenly end up with all these things coming out. With that in mind, let's look at the pitch factor, which is just the absolute dawn of one note in, music out. So just to show you first the quadravox mode, which is basically, so the pitch factor is all harmonization. This is what Eventide got started with, and is just, I just don't know a plugin that will do quite all of the things that this will do. So we have the ability, tons of different algorithms, obviously have 10, but on Quadravox it's basically 4 tuned harmonies, which we can with a scale, and then we can slip them so that they appear at different times. You have literally an order in which they're played. And so it's this idea that you can, just entering a single note, you get all of these ideas out. Yeah, it's nuts. Okay, so then we have the 910-949 mode, which is like, this is what launched Eventide. So the 910 was a pitch shifting delay unit, and this emulates
the
that.
Space warping time and space continuum.
It fiddles with the fabric of space and time. That was it, yeah, exactly. And we have different modes. We can make it sound more like a 910 or a 949 or more modern. But the idea is you put a note in and you have 2 different pitch shifting blocks.
And they're going through, every time they feedback, they ascend by the...
So you've got a feedback control. So they stair step as they go up. But you can have these going down as well. So nutty, but then you get real like runaway feedback if you do them at short.
Ah, yeah. Those are the sounds that you might recognise, those kind of, particularly on drums. Grace
Really
Jones,
good.
Slave to the Rhythm,
Yeah,
Sly
you
and
get
Robbie, all of
bling.
that stuff.
It makes this kind of springy sound.
Yeah.
And then the last thing with the pitch factor to show you is crystals, which is just a classic effect, which sounds a bit like this.
That sounds like pitch, delay and reverb.
That's exactly it, yeah. So it's 2 pitch shifting blocks with a built-in algorithmic reverb that can do enormous 100-second. So you can just do these like beautiful kind of ambient sort of feedbacking.
Almost got a tape echo-y kind of vibe to it as well,
Yeah.
hasn't it? Yeah, it's every time you play a note, you're just imagining the scene from a movie, aren't you? Really,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
that's
2001 basically. So, just like strange and extraordinary, like a lot of the things in this thing are. So,
And all of these algorithms are available, I mean, as algorithms as well,
so
right?
yeah. We should say, yeah. So the H9, which is the little white box, this thing, runs. It can run basically any of the algorithms from these boxes.
Right.
So literally any of the sounds that you've heard today, they can run in that box, and you can buy it in a bunch of different configurations. Like you can get it with just the 910 algorithm, or you can get a thing that's called the H9 Max,
Which has got everything.
It's got everything. So it's
Yeah.
like all of the algorithms from all of these. Plus, there's actually exclusive algorithms which are only in the H9. And for the money, it actually does make a hell of a lot of sense.
I guess the advantage of having these individually is you've got multiple, you can run 2 at once.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
the hands-on control.
God, I mean, we
imagine.
haven't even touched on that, but you can imagine if one sounds good, imagine what they sound like when you stack them together. So you could have, with these, you can have dedicated controls and you can stack them. Yeah, exactly. But
I mean, you could do a live set with a synth and these, couldn't you? Really, if you were
definitely an ambient type of thing.
Sounds like my kind of thing.
Well, there you go.
Oh, that's fantastic, Alex. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
sharing us. That's it for this time. Please do subscribe. We've got plenty more videos coming. See you next time.